Hey there, this is Emily and Bernie from Third Place Works, where we help co-working professionals with tailored cohorts and one-on-one consulting. Our proven frameworks can help you get focused, stay accountable, and see real results. Want to learn more? Check out the show notes for all the details on how to join us and take your co-working business to the next level.
Hello folks, it's your friend Bernie here, and it is another Coworking Values Podcast, and with the founder of Town Square today. So other than founding Town Square, Gareth, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for, sir?
Speaking to you from the high street of StabilityGareth. If anyone listening knows where StabilityGareth is, I'd be very impressed. But we've got spaces across the UK that we operate, and we work with partners to help them set up spaces as well.
And like this is, I think this is like your fifth time you've been here. So like, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, well, so today it's quite interesting, right? Because I think part of what I love about this job is that you are exposed to so many clues, if you know what I mean, and how or when or whether you act on some of those clues is what almost occupies you over the next period. So one of the big clues we've seen this summer is we've had over 500 people apply for jobs in our spaces in London. And we've never seen the kind of level of candidates that we've seen of late. So one of the things we decided to do, or we thought might be useful, is to put on a free workshop for anyone who's job seeking, or paid for anyone who's not but is curious, just on what the career opportunities are in co-working. So trying to kind of raise awareness for people about the careers, who it's for, what it looks like, when we had a quick chat, I think you thought that would make for great content. Let's get recording on it. So that's the main thing that we're kind of looking at the minute is how do we even start a conversation about who co-working jobs are for and how people can get them higher on their radar.
Because one of the things here is I remember talking to Alex Hillman about this about 100 years ago, and I went, like working in a co-working space feels like working in a restaurant, Alex. And then he went, yes, it is a little bit like that. And when I just, because the first part of my illustrious career, Gareth, was in I worked 5-star hotels and nightclubs and Pizza Hut and TGI Fridays. So I've met, I've done every job in the building, went to the same catering college as Jamie Oliver, but he paid more attention. And then when I went in a co-working space, there are people talk about the hospitality reality, but like the buzz of working in a co-working space is very similar for me to the buzz of working in a restaurant and, serving people and bumping into people and things like this. So, that is like the way I'd like to kind of bridge this conversation. Does that make? I'm going to say, does that make sense? And I hate saying, does that make sense? But
yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Hospitality is often used as the kind of reference point, and I completely agree. When we're looking at CVs, that tends to be what we're looking for, because you tend to find people coming out of hospitality, there's a bit more security to their hours. Sure, the salary is a bit of a bump. That's good, but also I think you use that word about service when describing those roles, and I think the thing about when you work in the co-working industry is you are on a level. There's a kind of peer level relationship with people, as opposed to there being almost like a subservient angle, but so there's a bit more of a kind of sense of pride or kind of honor in the role, I guess, in a way where we disgracefully just don't give hospitality that level of credit. So I think it's one of those where you can really kind of take on a lot more responsibility. I think, picking up on the point with hospitality, like there's no, you can't hide the fact that if you're working in the co-working industry, and we say this in every interview, are you as comfortable hosting, in one of our spaces last month, we hosted a Japanese delegation of investors and politicians and, policymakers and all this kind of stuff. But then the next day you might be mopping a leak from the dishwasher or, ordering in toilet paper or something like this. So it is it's a diverse role. You've got to be willing to kind of roll up your sleeves and take the good days with the bad days. But I think that's the thing. If you've come from hospitality, you're kind of used to that. If you're coming from other industries, maybe you've got a bit less of an understanding of quite what it means to roll up your sleeves in that sense. But I think that's the thing that I find, that the hard work is so rewarding. Going back to that point I said about the kind of the clues and the breadcrumbs working in the co-working industry, we've seen people in our team leave for great opportunities and give themselves a really great platform to do the next thing in their career. That they've said to us they would they wouldn't be in that position if it wasn't for that role.
Yeah. So what sort of people? You nearly said it there, but like, what sort of people came for jobs at Town Square that you were surprised that they had come to a job in co-working? And of those 500 people, not the exact figure, obviously, but like, how many of those had never heard of co-working before?
It's interesting, right? Because I think when one of my kind of big red flags in any interview is when you start asking that question and you realize that they haven't got a clue, or that maybe they've watched the WeWork Apple TV show, right? So I think there is a little bit here where people's understanding of co-working, and equally, what I think was great for us is that we tend to work in areas where co-working isn't that developed. So we're bringing people in who have no preconceptions, and we're able to kind of help them to understand what it is in a bit of a different way. But yeah, in terms of the people who've come through, hospitality, so management of restaurants, cafes, bars, hotels, car salespeople, mobile phone salespeople. We've had people who run their own businesses, people who've sold their own businesses. People who've run gyms. It's a really interesting, diverse mix. I'm almost going through in my head like all the people we've got on our team at the minute, but it is a really good mix of folks who are coming at it from different perspectives, but who are bringing some kind of a lot of their own qualities to the role as well, because they have developed these skills. I think the other thing that we find quite a lot, often more in our community maybe than in our teams, but the people who don't appreciate, or they've not been made to appreciate how skilled and capable and good they are at their role. So yeah, we tend to find that a lot. We hire a lot of people who are absolutely outstanding, but don't realize just how good they are.
So I'm trying to find a way into this question. Like, it is definitely a challenging economic time, and like for 500 people to apply for a job as a community manager I know that's across different sites, but that's a lot of people for one job. And I frequently see, more frequently than ever, see on LinkedIn some version of like, I had a really good job with a reputable company and it's taken me 6 months to get a job. And some of that might be, they just don't want to take a lesser job. They're hanging out for the thing that is, but it seems harder than ever to get a job.
Yeah. Do you know, there've been a couple of interesting things that we've seen in the last couple of rounds of recruitment that are markedly different from where things have been in previous years. But the one thing I've seen is massively overqualified people applying for part-time entry-level jobs. And there's almost two angles to it. One, which is about wanting to, I always find it a bit weird when people present it this way, but I also feel a little bit of a sense of it's good that people feel they can. It is that people say they want a different pace, so they want to focus on things in a different way. And I think not obviously, we're a B Corp, so a big part of what we're trying to do is create a good place for people to work and a place people enjoy working. But yeah, so people who feel they can't stand their current role and they're looking for something a bit different. The values part is a big part, because we're a B Corp. We get a lot of people who talk about that. They're going to talk about that in an interview, right? But yeah, the number of people who could do so much more, who've worked for multi-billion-pound corporations in executive roles, who are then applying for a community assistant role or a community coordinator role, through to people who have been working in a more precarious role, so maybe in sales roles that are more commission based, who are now looking for a bit more security. And I think we started our first company in 2011, and I think we all thought, this will pass. The economy will improve and conditions will get better. And I'm currently I've had quite a lot of driving this week and been listening to Torsten Bell's book about Great Britain, and it's quite interesting. We've had to do all this in what is now an extended economic crisis, to the point where, can you call it a crisis if it's a permanent status? So it's quite interesting how, after so long of economic crisis, we're seeing people still and increasingly applying for jobs that they are well overqualified to do. And there's some other kind of interesting quirks and trends as well. But yeah, it's an interesting market at the minute.
So, and this is in the the white papers you've published I really enjoyed, and all the John Alexander stuff, is that I've had this long held belief that co-working spaces in local areas really stimulate the local community, the local economic growth, and ideally, what if we could all walk to work, Gareth?
Yeah.
And can you say a bit about that for in the context of like people getting jobs? Because a lot of the time we talk about people starting their own businesses in co-working spaces, and the thing I say a lot about the big freelancer group, the freelance heroes, and Annie and Ed would put in there, what do you think co-working is? And everyone would say it's where the next Mark Zuckerberg hangs out. It's lots of bros doing their tech startup, but the average age of a co-working space member is something like 45. So can you riff on the economic development bit?
Yeah, I mean, so one thing that we do, I don't know if everyone does, but one thing that we do is we actually factor in their proximity to the location as being 20% of the scoring for getting to interview stage. So we try and prioritize people who are living in the area, who know the area, who are of the area, because it's a really important part for us around the credibility of that person, but also so much. We had a chat previously, Bernie, about the Welcome to Wrexham show. And I'm, for anyone who isn't aware, I was born in Wrexham, raised in the area, season ticket holder at Wrexham Football Club. But the interesting thing is that despite these guys never even knowing the area until 3 or 4 years ago, they have this ability to get decisions so right. They very rarely, miss on some of their big decisions. They seem to have this understanding of the community in a really impactful way. And I think when we look at a lot of political projects or things like this, there tend to be more misses than hits. Whereas when you do it right, you can really hit, and that hit can make so much more of a positive impact. So yeah, I think there's this sense of we wait for that. So we're looking as in waiting rather than waiting patiently for trying to find that quality and that skill set. But we're trying to look for something that is hard to catch in a CV or in a traditional interview. So, we try and do things in group interview settings where we'll ask, we'll get a group of say 6 or 8 people. We'll put people in pairs and ask them to interview each other. And then what will happen is when at the end of that, they then present the other person. And so a lot of that is really about trying to see how selfless they are and how much they're willing to promote another person. And because that's a massive skill that we're looking for in people, but it's not something that, people, you can ask that question because everyone will say, yeah, of course, I'm fantastic. I'm wonderful. I always promote people. So it's trying to see that side of people as well in a way that is more than just a set of questions in an interview.
So something that happens a lot in the London Co-working Assembly is, people come to us and say, oh, I'm looking for a job. Do you know anyone that's looking? And then, people like you will come and say, oh, who's around at the moment? And a lot, both the person looking for the employer and the employee wouldn't go to monster.com and find a co-working community manager job. And so someone like you, after going through this process, what advice would you give to co-working space owners and managers looking to recruit people? Like, how do you find the right person?
It's really hard. And there have been, I'm not saying this from a position of being a perfect expert, because we've abandoned recruitment previously when we've not found the right people, and we've been quite we take that quite seriously. We'd rather get the right person than get someone in as a kind of placeholder, if you know what I mean. So without naming and shaming platforms, we tend to find if you go through some of the platforms, you get a lot of people who are just auto applying to jobs that they've got no interest in or no understanding of what it is. And we've had that previously as well, where you've set an interview with someone, and right at the start, the first question is, right, can you just remind me what this role is for? And it's just like, okay, there's no point carrying on this conversation. So I think some of the platforms are can inflate it a little bit. But I think, a big part of that is about building local connections, so that when you are putting out those roles, a lot of your partners and ecosystem members are willing to kind of promote, share, refer. Ideally, someone who's fully aware of the company, is fully aware of what you're trying to do, and is kind of is joining intentionally as opposed to just looking for a job. That's quite a big thing that I think we find. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes from, without being too kind of twee about it, kind of practicing what you preach. So, if people can see it consistently over a long period of time that everything you're saying you do, you really do. It's not just about getting one of those kind of Times Best Place to Work for certificates and feeling that you've done your job. You really kind of live up to what you commit to live up to. I think that's the stuff that makes the difference. And as long as, then it comes down to, trying to encourage your teams or giving incentives for your teams to refer people and for your members to refer potential staff members and things like this. So I think if you can get all those things nailed, then your real focus, as it always is just on making sure that your reputation does the talking for you.
So another question that I'm dying to ask is that there's people who, like you and Mandy, who started out with one space and now have, is it 9?
Yeah,
that's it. So how do you, and we've spoken about this a little bit before, Gareth, but like you and Mandy say, we're going to do this thing, it's going to be town square, all local and everything like that, and then it gets to 9 people, and there's other people in the UK who are in the same bandwidth as you, have grown in the same period as you, and how do you folks keep the original idea and as it grows? Because going back to the hospitality thing, McDonald's started out with 2 brothers running a nice little burger restaurant and is now what it is now. So it's gonna, how do you retain the essence of the original idea?
So I was down in our space in Bognor Regis this week, and I was having this chat with our community manager there. We have intentionally as a board decided to not sign any more leases, and so that's our intention here. Is that I think we realised, and I know we're going slightly into a different tangent, but I think it's relevant to other co-working operators. When you go into a region, depending on your approach and depending on your strategy, what tends to happen is you get sold this regen plan or this regen dream, and there's a sense of, we're building something here, it's going to be amazing, we're going to really turn things around. And I think that's been where we've seen projects get easier or harder, is kind of 2 or 3 things happen. The first thing that happens is they never really believed in it. They just had to apply for some funding, and they managed to get the funding, so they need to spend the funding. So they decided to build a co-working space or a creative workspace or something like that, because that was the trendy thing. Or it's someone who is really passionate, really great, really good, and then they get headhunted out and poached out, and you don't have that same sense of internal leadership. Or you find that they got the funding for the one project, but then the funding dried up for the other projects. So the bigger picture regen plan doesn't go ahead, and you are, you're the flag bearer for the whole scheme. So I think what we, for us as Town Square, where Town Square started was our first space in South Wales. We had an impact report land on our desks that showed that we'd created about 50 to 60 million GVA uplift for the area. And I don't believe in those numbers so much. So I think the whole GVA thing is a load of rubbish anyway, but it certainly did indicate that something good was happening, right? And that was our kind of sense was, okay, well, would this work elsewhere? So now we're at 9 spaces, and we've helped to create and hand back and sell and move on 12 or so spaces in total. I think what we learn from each site is different. And I think going back to that McDonald's analogy, you can't do, maybe you can, right? But my feeling at the minute is community development as a franchise or at scale hasn't been nailed as yet. I think we're getting closer to it with our model, because everything we're trying to focus on is experiments about how we empower, how we provide skills, tools, resources for the community manager to do the best, and recruiting the right person, training them, inducting them, supporting them, giving them everything they need to make it a success for their community. And a big part of that is buy-in, it's guts, it's belief. We have this thing in our company called Clickday. When we're doing our induction, we talk about Clickday, and Clickday is the day when you've been selling dreams to people. People are coming in for tours, and you're saying, "Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Just you wait." And people are looking around and saying, "Okay, good luck with that." And then one day comes and it is just buzzing. Everything clicks. The space is packed. You've got a big event on. Every desk is taken. You're refilling the coffee every 25 minutes. And then the next day it's empty again. And it's all about increasing the frequency of those click days. And, speaking kind of candidly, our space in Bognor Regis, we had some real issues in the first couple of years, to the point where we didn't think it would ever work. And then I went in there this week. It's packed out. It's breaking. It's making profit now. It's thriving. We've got this beautiful, amazing community of people there. And I think it's that sense of, you've really got to have the guts to stick at it. So you're looking for those people who've got that ability and tenacity as well. So I think when you're looking at the McDonald's element, because so much of that is variable around the person that is leading it, that's the bit that I'm really kind of fascinated by. And when we're talking about, the John Alexanders and the Torsten Bells of the world who are kind of putting forward these visions for how that works, it is trying to find what is the Big Mac sauce, right? Like, what is the secret sauce at the core of all this stuff? Because it's not easy, and no two locations are the same. So yeah, I know I've got a bit long on that because you've got me on my soapbox. But yeah, that's the bit that I find really fascinating, is not for any one particular company, but for a society at large. I'd love for us to nail that idea of how can we truly create community benefit for everyone. Because yeah, some of the things that are in place now, like some of the social value measurement tools and things, they're just not fit for purpose.
Yeah. One of the things that I remember in Coworking Europe 2017 in the corridor at the rugby stadium, and he went, "Oh, what do you do now?" And you're like, "Oh, this," and you were with Mandy, and I honestly love the idea. And as I saw Town Square unfold, the fact it wasn't going to London, Paris, New York, and Munich, it was going to Bognor Regis and Wrexham and Oxford, because back in 2017, 2018, that was very daring to open a co-working space outside of Old Street, wasn't it? And yeah. I felt taking...
Well, yeah, and I think that's, it's the curious part of all of this, really, is that it depends on what we create co-working spaces for, right? I read a recent industry report, and it's, co-working seen as a property industry as opposed to a community wealth building industry.
There's this, it's a property thing, it's a hospitality thing, but until you said that, it is the thing I always like about it, or the vision I hold for it, is that community wealth building thing, like a co-working space. And there's more and more evidence to this. I used to say this, mainly before COVID, it'd be like, one day we would all be free. But the amount of co-working spaces opening up out of major metropolis places and becoming that, community connection point, and filling we all used to go to the pub. There used to be more youth centres. There used to be the community centres, places of worship played a different role in communities. But a co-working space is becoming more and more recognised as that beacon of community. Is there anything I haven't asked you, Gareth, that you're dying to tell me, the event you're running that's coming up?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing to add without dating this conversation, is that, yeah, the workshop's coming up on Wednesday, 30th of October. We're running 2 slots. We've had some really good uptake already since we kind of first started talking about it earlier this week. But yeah, for anyone who's interested, if you look me up on LinkedIn, Gareth I. Jones, or Town Square, you'll find us there, or look up on Eventbrite, Town Square Islington. But yeah, it'd be great to see some folks there who are kind of, what I'd love to see is other people within the co-work industry who maybe are looking to recruit and looking to kind of promote that message as well, so that they can emphasize that and echo that. That would be amazing.
We're going to put a link in the show notes to all of that stuff. But can you say what is going to happen at that event, so people listening? I know when I'm walking along, I'll go, I don't know what that's about, so I won't click the link in the show notes. And if you you don't need to sell it, just explain it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be 60 minutes, so it's going to be quite a lot we're going to try and squeeze in. But talking about the history of co-working, what co-working is, what it isn't, the kind of common roles and duties that you might expect to be taken on if you're working in the co-working industry, and then things to kind of prioritize mentioning in your interviews, in your application, and your covering letters, etc. for those roles. And then trying to create some time, hopefully at the end, for a bit of a Q&A on their own experience and what they're looking for to try and create a bit more engagement in the room. That's the hope.
Ace. I'm going to make Gareth put that in the mighty LinkedIn co-working group, which we're more and more of you are getting in there and answering things and commenting and liking. Engagement is really, I hate saying engagement, but like we want to build that into a place where people like you listening to this will go and get a reliable community experience and be able to ask questions. So how to get a job and hire people is a really good community experience. So thanks for your time and attention today, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. Go to the links in the show notes. We're particularly talking about European Co-working Day, which is coming up in May next year, which is a massive community building opportunity for people in your local area. And it's a way for you to explain even better the value of your co-working space to the community in your local area. And also the Workspace Design Show will be running a big European co-working assembly event there on day 1 and day 2. Wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It is a jungle.